In Southern California, it is a hot as fuck day. But you know, we've been stuck in this weird ass weather. Yesterday was like raining, like cats and dogs, and now it's sunny. I don't know, some goofy ass weather. For those who are curious, I did drop a new video on this channel, right? If you guys want to scope that out, you know, one of YouTube, at least when it comes to the street genre's biggest hypocrisy, right? That a lot of people do, you know, within the genre, despite the very genre that they are pushing and narrating themselves. Whoopsie. Which in itself is strange, but hey, whatever sells the views, no? It seems people like to be, you know, pressers, but then become victims as soon as they get pressed. It's cool that they want to bully people, but then when they get bullied back, they don't like it. I don't know. It's strange behavior by individuals. You know, I was watching Point and Shoot, and he did a really good video covering on it, right? Discussing Poetic Flacco. So if you guys want, you guys could go scope out Point and Shoot. He's a content creator who drops really, you know, good videos. Funny too. It's funny how he uses, you know, how he knows that what he says tends to influence those very individuals. He's intelligent. He knows what he's doing, and it seems to work too. You know, because these individuals seem to, you know, get baited into it as well. They may never speak his name, but they definitely watch his content. You know, and he's pretty funny, especially when he does, you know, throw his jokes in there. And you know, he basically just, you know, highlights these individuals, you know, hypocrisy and lies as well. So I think it's pretty good for Point and Shoot. What's cracking like in my boy? Was good. And he does have a lot of videos, right? Mostly covering No Jumper, right? Different hosts on No Jumper, but he has good content though. I recommend it. Hi, hello there, Art. I like your videos. Hey, gracias, my boy. I appreciate that. Hello to everybody. I hope everybody's having a lovely, lovely Wednesday. Even though here at least in the California area, it is hot as fuck. Oh yeah, if you guys could hit the likes, that would actually help, and I would appreciate it. But only if you want. If you don't, it's cool. You know, I completely understand. Let's get 100 likes. Shit, I'll be grateful if I even get like 10. Because that does help, you know, YouTube push the content out. Because it's ran through a software, so it only recognizes certain things. YouTube is strange like that. That's even why, you know, a lot of individuals like to push content that gets a lot of people worked up, right? Because even though a majority of the comments may be negative, the fact that individuals get a lot of comments is also helping their channels being pushed, right? Because YouTube doesn't recognize the negative comments; it just recognizes the number of comments. So that's why a lot of individuals tend to go down that route. I get it from the perspective. I watched the last video and I agree with things, people not letting go of the glory dubs. Gunners, they would kill a whole family and fuck. Yeah, I know. They tend to do that a lot, but they're not the only ones though. Like a lot of individuals do that, you know. I'm telling you, a lot of people like to out, you know, behaviors on individuals, right? But they display the same very behaviors that they are, you know, pointing out, which is strange. What's cracking like in Derek? What you getting yourself into, my boy? What a shadow school head right now. Now I know what people mean by homesick. Yeah, it takes a while to adjust, but it does happen. So you'll eventually get the groove into it, right? But since you're barely starting, right, is you're in that stage where it's you're still trying to adapt. Luckily, us as humans, we're quick to adapt. Enjoyable Wednesday. Hey, likewise. Thoughts on the cartels being named a terrorist? You think they will go to war? Eventually, Trump isn't fucking around. Well, it wouldn't be a war though. Like, cartels, groups like that just wouldn't be able to handle any type of scenario with a country's military, right? An established country's military. Um, Obviously, people think that they might have a chance, right, because of how they tend to sometimes bully Mexico's military, right? But if we're comparing Mexico's military to the United States military, it's not even close. You know what I mean? The Mexican military has always never been a strong military. It's something that just Mexico has never really invested in compared to the United States, right? Who invests more money than any fucking country combined, in their military. So they just wouldn't be able to handle it. Because a cartel is not built to be able to sustain a long period of war with a group like that, right? While the United States, I mean, the military, that's literally what it's built for. Then just wanted to. Hey, gracias, I appreciate that. No, well, I just look at it from the I don't let my ego and pride get the best of me, right? Like certain individuals that'll be like, nah, homie, they wouldn't be able to fuck with us. Like, well, no, we got to look at it from the realistic, rational sense of things, right? Like if we're actually being, truthful and speaking on honesty, right? Like, well, no, they wouldn't be able to hang, not even close, you know? It's easy to say that because, like, oh, you see what they do to Mexico's military? Like, bro, I know you're not comparing Mexico's military to the United States. It's just hard to get Mexicans with so many battles that took place in the beginning of Mexico's creation, right, to establish itself, right, when we relieved ourselves from the Spaniards. It was really hard to get people on board into, fucking putting in money into military, right? These people were tired of fighting, bro. They were tired of seeing war, right? So just getting them on board to try to build up their military, they were not gonna have it, You're gonna have another fucking uproar. Cartels, no. We didn't. That's why, like, hopefully the Mexican government gets their act together and they'll be able to combat this problem a little bit better. But until then, I mean, they're stuck in this loop. Because, especially when you have a group as aggressive or as ruthless as a cartel, right? Getting all these individuals to die or sacrifice themselves for these individuals would be a lot. It'll be very difficult as well, right? Like once they start seeing the shit getting out of hand, they'll most likely fucking just, surrender. Like, fuck that. Because now the risks outweighs the benefits, so they're just not going to be, right now, because they're facing, Mexicans government and Mexicans law enforcement, the benefits outweigh the risks, right? Because they can most likely pay off these individuals, most of these individuals on their payroll. So, they'll be able to, if they take this path, they'll be able to earn more money than they would do it at least the legal way, right? And with not that, at least not that much of a bad of a risk compared to now, if you're dealing with a big ass risk, these individuals are probably going to be like, yeah, that shit's not worth it. But that's why you still get a lot of people to, join and, um, push this whole cartel narrative, right? Because, well, the risks are not that bad and they're benefiting from it, quite handsomely. Why do you think right here in America you don't have the same problem? I mean, you have street gangs and stuff like that, right? But you don't have the the amount of shit that's like in Mexico, right? Or not even just Mexico, right? But some of these other countries as well. And Mexico's the one that's highlighted the most, but it's not the only one that suffers from this problem, right? You have other places that suffer from the very exact same thing. And not even in just South America, but I mean even like in Asia and in Europe, right? Because you still have pretty big sized groups on those side of town. I mean, where you can see the evidence of that is just like, let's say El Chapo's incarcerated now here in America, right? And all of a sudden, all his power that he had or that he ruled with, I mean, it's not benefiting him or helping him in any type of way now over here, right? No, but when he was still incarcerated in Mexico, even though he was incarcerated, he was still living quite right, quite lovely. While over here he's pleading for his life. It's a good conversation here on like the other channels. They said if they had nothing but homies like me, they would be able to. That's crazy. I don't know. I don't understand why people on the internet, try to push this tough guy narrative on here, right? It's the internet, bro. Like, why are you trying to convince people that you're tough right here, bro? Damn fool, that's you. Is it me? Yes. U.S. power remembers what happens. Escobar. Chapo's next. Is Junior fool. What Junior? Your power's out. Yeah, everybody's empire comes crashing down at one point or another. Once you start getting too out of hand, see the government will let you get out of hand and they really won't fuck with you, right? But once you start getting too out of hand, then they got to come in. And then, like I said, these people really have the power to shut down anybody that they want, right? It's just that they don't see it beneficial until it becomes beneficial. Have you seen Gladiator 2? It's really good. No, I haven't scoped that one out. Is it? Yeah, the first one was pretty dope too. Isn't the second one with fucking Denzel Washington? Or am I tripping? Is it bad to date someone from work? Is it bad to date someone from work? I wouldn't necessarily say it's bad, right? But it just depends on your relationship, right? If you're a toxic individual, then yeah, it could become bad, right? But if you have thick skin, I mean, it shouldn't become an issue. What's crying your leg in Dashpool? By the way, what are your thoughts on Back Joe saying Puerto Ricans help create hip hop 50 along with Black Americans? Do you agree with that? What shop? Puerto Ricans create hip hop. What does he mean by create hip hop? Did he give any examples? It depends like what he's talking about. Did he mean like the whole breakdancing scene or stuff that goes hand in hand with hip hop, or does he mean like the actual hip hop in itself? That could just be his pride talking, right? And plus, to be honest with you, I really don't understand why individuals are so hold up to that kind of stuff, like, or why they want to inject themselves in everything. Though it really isn't, important in general. Other other Rasa YouTubers keep trying to convince they are baddest and their life is better than ours and not exactly where I want to be, but it's way better than where I was before. Facts, bro. To try to compare yourself to another person's life, right, or try to belittle them because of that, already shows that, well, you're not as high as you think you are, right? If you're basically right here arguing with this type of individuals for things like this that are not even important at all, right? Because if you really were, as high as you say that you are, I mean, you wouldn't be right here doing what you're doing right now, Mister Big Shots. You know what I mean? And it's crazy, and it's like for people that don't want to be considered no more a part of that life, or say that they're already grown or too old for that, or they're have already are long past that, right? Then I don't understand why they care to defend their criminal actions or criminal record. You know, I mean, if they don't care, but the reason they do is because they still do care, still want to be seen like that. Oh, that was enough. April, I got you. Oh, you good, my boy? You good? Gracias, bro. I'll take you up on the todo chingón. You can actually YouTube it. So, agree Puerto Ricans. Did they? I don't know. I would have to actually educate myself on that, right? And to dive into that, right? I'm not gonna say that I'm an expert in knowing all of that, right? Try to use his statement against all Latinos by calling all Latinos culture vultures. Say, but you can't be a culture if you understand, if you're a part of the culture, though. Like you know, these these individuals grew up amongst these very same Latinos and Raza individuals, right? Culture vulture is like if these individuals are coming straight directly from Mexico and trying to act like they know the culture, when it's like, well, no, because you guys grew up in the same type of environment, growing up, going through the same things, right? People have to keep in mind that when we're talking about oppression and discrimination and all of that, it wasn't just black people that were getting lynched or had to sit in the back of the bus or couldn't be in the same restaurants with white folks. It was happening to all minorities, not just blacks, right? So that means that the Mexicans, the Latinos, even the Asians and all of them were getting lynched and getting abused and getting harassed and getting, discriminated against, and segregation and all of that as what equally as well as the blacks, right? But I get it, in history they don't teach you that side of things for some strange reason. And as you take, history, in college, right? Then you actually get to see the real history of things, right? So it's like you can't be, a culture vulture. See, like a culture vulture is like Adam, right? Who had, absolutely nothing to do with, hip hop or any type of the street world, right? He just came from New Hampshire over here and tried to act like, he's down with, to benefit off of it. That's a culture vulture. Someone who's actually not a part of the culture, has absolutely no idea about the culture, but wants to pretend in order to gain something, gain benefit, financially from it. Well, thank you, Mr. Pasa. What I miss? We chilling. I don't really agree all the way with Marvelous Inc., but they the drop some gems at the time, conversation situations I was, but I tuned in his show and it's good. Norby's. He said it's useless. No, Marvelous before before the whole thing hit the fan, right? Yeah, even though I didn't agree with his views and all that, right? He was knowledgeable, right? He wasn't, um, um, like completely ignorant or had absolutely no idea what he was talking about, right? Like I said, I may not have agreed, right? But I stopped, tuning in because of, the whole situation because I'm just not down with that kind of stuff, right? And that's no disrespect, it's just that's just how I feel, my views, right? And I'm just not down with that kind of stuff. So you still mess with. Yeah, I tap into his wrestling stuff from time to time. I scope out his stuff todavía though. Is 9 to 5 the worst shift? Nah, I wouldn't say it's the worst shift. Probably the worst shift is probably graveyard. If anything, 9 to 5 is probably the best shift or the average. The first gangster uh, crime, Spain, Irish, Italy, the mob, Los Angeles West called gang members, gangbangers, new cartel. Well, gangs have actually always existed. Gangsters have always existed, right? It's just that that's gangster is more of the newer terminology for it, right? But groups like gangs have always existed throughout history, right? And as history has gone, it has just evolved, right? Because these renegade crusades, or let's say these pirates, or these different band of individuals, right? Who rebelled against the establishment, whatever the establishment, even if we're talking about medieval times or the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and and even before that, right? Individuals that didn't want to live by their rules, so they rebelled against what was established, right? And created their own small circle, and chose colors, right? Flags or whatever people want to call them, right? Symbols, right? And referred to each other by aliases, right? And marked territory and went to different villages and were plunder, rape, and kill. Essentially everything that a criminal organization does nowadays, right? And like I said, these individuals were living lawlessly, right? So they were outlaws by whatever emperor was around, and they would clash with what whatever was established before police and all that, right? And as time has gone by, it has evolved, right? It has gone by different names and different terms for these individuals, but essentially all the same thing, right? Individuals that didn't want to live by the rules, would claim territory, created their own flags and aliases, and were wanted men, essentially gangs. You know what I mean? People would fear them, and you have seen it, throughout history. So it's not something that's new, or something that you know it has only been a problem in modern day, right? But it's a problem that has always existed. And not just a problem that affects the Western way of living, right? But has affected throughout the whole world. Whether the individuals call themselves mafias or cartels or gangs or crews or clubs or uh, posses or whatever. But essentially all the same though. Yes, because despite what people say, pirates were real. I actually have been on other podcasts, right? Now, normally why I don't jump onto so many different podcasts like other individuals, right? It's just that our our ideologies don't line up, right? Our views just don't line up, right? Like I'm not somebody who's looking to be famous or blow up or anything. I'm just here to have conversations, just interact and have conversations. But there's certain other individual or channels, right, that want to talk about certain things that I don't see the purpose on why discussing, right? Because I would only see the purpose on discussing those things if that's how I want to be painted or seen as, right, or cared for, that type of information. When I don't, though, like certain individuals wanted to be seen as real, badasses and tough and gangster, when it's like, why would I care for it to, get individuals to see me in that matter? Do you like Fritos? Yeah. Oh, hey, we did reach that. Hey, gracias to everybody. I have a question. Do you engage in debates with people who views you don't agree with, especially when it comes to? Yeah, I have. I have actually, discussed them on here as well too, right? But now, would I debate like somebody who's no good, like a drama? No, I wouldn't, right? Because there's no reason for it. They have their views and I have mine, and that's just what it is. Like our views just don't line up, so like I wouldn't see the reason of why to be debating these individuals. I think I heard every excuse in the book already, right? But at the end of the day, that's all they are, excuses, though. They say people who can prove their opinions with facts don't run from debates. Facts. Like I said, as long as you have the truth on your back pocket and your side, then you shouldn't be rattled by anybody, right? Because even though they're good manipulators or liars, or could talk a good one, right? At the end of the day, even if they do get people to believe the lie, right, it's still a lie nonetheless, right? And a lie could never beat the truth, and the lie would never beat the truth, right? So it don't matter how many people jump on board with the lie; they're the only ones looking stupid for believing the lies, right? Because you can only sustain a lie for so long till reality hits, right? And then who ends up looking stupid and all that at the end of the day, right? The people who chose to follow the lie. What if someone convinces you that you should snitch and leave your wallet because it's in the best interest? That's what. But in the best interest of who, though? Like yourself, though? You get what I mean? Like, look, you can't snitch on nothing, because you, as an individual, no one forces you to do anything. So you're taking responsibility for every action that you commit. You're going out there and gangbanging because you wanted to. You went to go put in work because that's what you wanted to do. Nobody forced you to go out there. You chose to, ride along and go with these individuals and wanted to be a part of the reindeer games. You chose this. You. And we all know this as individuals. Nobody's has a gun to our head and making us do the shit that we do or telling us. People are doing it willingly. And I know, because, like I said, I live the world, right? So everyone is down, and to them it's all fun and games, right? So then when you get caught, right? And now you get caught, and now you want to blame other people like it was because of them or it was because of them, when in all true reality, bro, in all the true facts, bro, nobody forced you. You wanted to go. You wanted to do everything. So now why are you trying to fucking throw the blame on somebody else? Hey, you weren't doing that when you were laughing in the backseat of the whip and you were telling them to pass you the strap. It was all good. But now you want to now blame this or blame that, or they made me, or I was forced to. When in all true reality, that's not the case, bro. And I should know. Right? So it's like, why would I snitch? I'll snitch on what, though? Blame them for what? Take accountability. And this is not even about no gangster code or living by some gangster rules. This is about just being a man, regular morals, right? Take accountability for your actions, for the decisions. Because you wanted to do this shit. Don't try to now blame somebody else. You get what I'm saying? You made these choices, so now you have to deal with the repercussions and the consequences for your actions. And we all know this. You get me? But individuals that have always been snakes and have always been weasels and con men and, pretenders are the ones that choose to deflect off because they never want to take accountability. Nothing's ever their fault. They're always the victims. Yes, they were coerced, they were, tricked, they were, yes, of course, always. It would be good to hear one of these individuals be like, nah, you know what, this shit was on me. Even if they do, fall out or whatever, I may not agree with their decision, but I can at least respect the individual for speaking the truth and at least taking accountability for his actions. instead of trying to be like, oh man, if you were my shoes, you would have done the same thing. It was because of them. Yes, I know. It was always because of somebody else. You get what I mean? But my lunch break is over. We gotta get back to it. It was good chopping it up with you guys, and we out.